Hi, how are ya? Hey guys, what is poppin'? Today I'm going to be doing a comparison video between the new Jaclyn Hill Volume 2 palette and the Jaclyn Hill original palette in collaboration with Morphe. Now, I know this video is going to already be long, so let's just get into it and get into the facts and get into comparing these. Okay, so here is the new Volume 2 palette. That is just a little plastic inside. You open it up, and here is the palette. 35 stunning shades. They are all gorgeous. I loved the color story behind it. I actually have a review up on this palette, so if you guys haven't seen it yet, check it out. It's my last video on my channel. And then we are going to be comparing this palette against the original Jaclyn Hill x Morphe palette. It looks like this. As you can see, the packaging is a little different. The difference between this one and that one is on the back. This one has the shade names. And I'm just going to say, Morphe, Jaclyn Hill, this ain't it. But this is. So good job on improving that and fixing that and listening to us. So like I said, this is the new one and this is the old one. Now we're going to open this up. It's going to be very dirty, so prepare yourselves. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Yeah, I have used and abused this palette. As you can tell, it is very dirty. I've also hit pan on my beloved yellow, I forgot what shade this is called, Creamsicle. I've also hit pan on my beloved shade, but as you can tell, the color stories are very, 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 very different. As you could tell. Looking at both palettes together, they have very, very different color stories. So you're probably wondering, why are you doing a comparison video if these two palettes are nothing alike? Jaclyn Hill, in her video revealing Volume 2, did say that these are the same formula and that this palette is her original Jaclyn Hill customized formula. Not Morphe's formula, but a formula that Jaclyn Hill made for Morphe for her palettes. So, I'm curious to see formula-wise if these are the same. So, I'm going to try to do similar looks, but I highly doubt they'll turn out the same. But the main theory in this video is the formula of these the same? So, I think I'm going to swatch the shades that I think are most similar and then decide what look I'm doing from there. So, first I'm going to swatch off. I'm going to swatch both blacks in the palette because obviously they're black, so they have to be similar. I'm going to do the OG one first and then the Volume 2. So the first swatch that I do will be the OG palette and the second swatch that I do will be the Volume 2 palette. So I'm just going to go in it like about 3 times. I know some people go real in. I used to do that, but when it comes to swatching on camera now, I kind of just do it 3 times because I think that should be good enough for pigment payoff. As you can see, it does have a lot of pigment on the finger. This one did feel a bit dry, but then again, it's been in my collection for like 2 years now. So that also can play a role in it, so I understand why it could be dry. And let's swatch this one. This is just one swatch down. Okay. There's definitely a bit more pigment on my finger than there is on my arm. But it's not too bad. Like, at least you see the black, but it's not the best. But I have to be honest, it has been 2 years, so it might even be expired if I'm being honest. But not only that, but this does usually apply better on my eyes. Now I'm doing Volume 2. 1, 2, 3. This definitely feels a little creamier and less dry for sure. That's the pigment that you get on the finger, and as you can see, there was definitely more pigment on the first finger in 3 swatches rather than the second finger, but I'm guessing the second Volume 2 palette is going to swatch better. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so the second black definitely swatches better. Like I said, when it really comes to makeup, sometimes swatches don't really matter the most. It definitely matters what's on the eyelids, so we'll get to there when we do. The next shade from the original palette is the shade MFEO that I'm going to swatch. You can barely see that on my skin because it's close to my skin tone, but that swatched really nicely. Obviously, like I said, it doesn't swatch amazing because it could be because it's a little older, but on the eyes, they usually work perfectly. And I'm going to compare that to the shade Perfectionist from Volume 2. 1, 2, 3. And swatch. And pose. Okay, they're similar. They're obviously not the same. I am liking Perfectionist a little better though. Next one from the original palette is going to be the shade Pukey. This is definitely one of the creamiest shades in the palette for sure. As you can see, that swatches beautifully even 2 years later in my collection. And we're going to compare that to the shade G Money in the Volume 2 palette. So I'm going to take my other finger, swatch that. 1, 2, 3. This definitely does feel nicer, but like I said, it also is newer. I'm going to go in a little more, just because I don't think I put in a lot of pressure. I'm going to swatch that next to that. As you see, I definitely think that the shade from the original palette swatched better, and they're definitely not the same. Alright, the last matte shade that kind of looks similar but not really to the OG palette is this smack down in the middle shade called the shade Roxanne. As you can see, that swatch is pretty nice, but definitely not when I first got it. And to compare that, I'm taking the Volume 2 palette and taking the shade Thick Skin. This one is definitely a bit more pinky toned, but we're going to try to dupe it, kind of. Not really dupe it, but yeah. So I definitely like the way Thick Skin looks a bit more, I don't know, it looks a bit more pinky toned, and I prefer more pinky tones, so that could be the reason why. Okay, so I only have 3 shimmers for you, so we're going to start off with the shade SBN. The metallic shimmer formula in this palette is to die for. Honestly, the mattes and the shimmers, but there's something else about the metallics. You can watch, like, just, yeah, they're pretty much effortless. And that compares to the shade called, I forgot which one it was. Oh, Get Ready With Me in the Volume 2 palette. So let's go ahead and swatch that. This one definitely feels a bit less soft in the pan and definitely a bit more hardly pressed. Let's swatch that. Okay, they are polar opposites. I don't even know why I tried to swatch those. As you can tell, they're pretty much not similar at all. Let's try another one. Okay, the only other shimmer that I could find that is just a little similar, definitely not the same or like too similar, just one that's kind of a little similar, is the shade Cranapple from the original and the shade Empowered from Volume 2. Again, definitely doesn't feel as soft as the original for sure when I put my finger into it to swatch. Alright, first we're going to go in with Cranapple. Flawless, and now with the shade, what was it again? Empowered. Ooh, okay. I'm definitely, oh sorry, that was out of frame, whoops. I'm definitely liking the shade Empowered a bit better, but it also did swatch very nice compared to the other one. But the metallics are both very nice metallics, so metallic wise, I do think the OG wins, and matte wise, I think the new Volume 2 wins. So now let's finally get on to testing these on the eyes. Alright guys, real quickly before we get into the video, I'm spoiling the final look just to ask you guys right now, which one do you think is the original palette and which side do you think is the Volume 2 palette? Take a moment, pause this video, comment down below. I would love to see if you got the answer right. Okay, so I'm taking up my Real Techniques Multitask Eye Brush. Also, all my brushes in this video are a little stained with color, but I promise you they are dry and have no pigment going off. Now I'm going to take a little bit of this shade and dip into this and use this as a transition shade on my crease. And then I'm going to go and dip into Volume 2 into the shade that we swatched that was similar called Perfectionist. Now I'm going to take Perfectionist from Volume 2. I also want to say that I had 2 problems with the original palette, and that was the fact that there was no mirror and no names on the front. They fixed the name problem, but I'm still waiting on the mirror. I know it could be a bit more expensive, but it'd be nice if they could incorporate it into the palette for $39. Okay, so I've done my transition shade on both eyes, and I've noticed that the transition shade on the original palette, I had to dip in back and forth about 2 to 3 times to get the payoff that it has, and for the volume 2 palette side, I only had to do it once. I just dipped into Perfectionist once, put it all over my eye, and my transition shade was done. So that is what we have noticed so far. Now let's start getting into the deeper shades. Going into the original palette, I'm going to dip into the shade Jax and kind of mix that up with the shade Hunts just a bit. I'm going to do a mix between these two. I'm going to start building that on my outer corner and kind of pull that in a bit to the crease, but I'm going to keep it more on the outer corner and towards the lower lash line, rather too much on to the lid. Also, I don't know if I already mentioned this, but I primed my lids with the Too Faced Born This Way concealer. Now, for volume 2, I'm going to take my Morphe R36 brush and dip in between Next and Crazy and combine these two together like I did in the original one, trying to get a similar color, but I'm pretty sure these have stronger purple undertones, so they won't look the same, but it's the most similar that I could find in this palette. Okay, right off the bat, as you can see, this one definitely is more vibrant. It has a bit more pigment when you first apply it. And it definitely looks a bit more smoother, I'd say. Okay, the way that blended on the first try compared to the original after multiple tries, and this one still looks more vibrant and blended. It almost looks like I used 2 different shades when I only used one. Okay, Jaclyn. Okay, Jaclyn, you've outdone yourself. You've definitely redeemed yourself. Okay, Miss Hill. Okay. Now I'm dipping into the shade Pukey in the OG with my Morphe M506 brush. I just want to show you guys when I tap off the excess, there is a little dustiness in the air. Like, let me tap in a bit more just to show you. I don't know if you guys can see it on camera, but there's definitely a bit of dustiness coming off the brush. And now I'm going to use that on my brush to just blend out whatever I have on my lid and my crease. Now dipping into volume 2 with my Morphe M514 brush into the shade G Money. Okay, now for shimmers, I'm going to go into SBN in the original palette and put this on the inner lid. I'm not going to be doing a cut crease or anything just because I'm comparing the formula, so I don't think I need to do one. And then placing this on the inner third of the lid. And I'm going to take Bougie from the Volume 2 palette because now that I look at it, Bougie definitely looks similar to the one on my lid than Get Ready With Me does. Wow, 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 wow. Okay. I thought I'd like the original palette's I thought I'd like the original's metallic formula better than the Volume 2 palette's metallic formula, but OMG, wow. The metallic formula on the Volume 2 palette side definitely did better in one swipe rather than the original one. And the original ones, I thought they were bomb and metallic because all these years I've been using them and they are the best. But this one definitely looks more sparkly, a bit more foiled, and a bit more out there, which I love. Now dipping into the OG, I'm taking the shade Karen Apple. I'm going to use this shade to blend together my inner shimmer and the outer corner mattes that we did. I already know I'm going to like this one better based off swatches, but hey, based off swatches, this Volume 2 metallic formula definitely surprised me over the OG one. I ended up liking the Volume 2 palette formula better than the OG one, at least for that shade. Let's try this shade and see how this goes on. Okay, now I'm going to take both blacks from both palettes and use that just on the outer corner to deepen everything up. I'm not going to make this too crazy intense, but I'm going to just make the outer corners a little more deeper and intense, and then kind of bring that in closely to the lower lash, not lower lash line, the upper lash line as like a slow cat eye effect, but nothing too crazy or nothing too deep. So I'm going to test out the original first and then the volume 2 second. Now for the final step on the lids, I'm just going to blend out each eye with each of their transition shades. Underneath, and I'm going to do that cat eye shape. The original side definitely has less fallout than the other side, the volume 2 side does, but I will get to that in a minute and why I think that's the case. Or you know what, let me just say it now. These colors are definitely more vibrant than these colors, so it kind of does make sense. Now for the lower lash line, I'm going to take the same brush that I used for the black on the outer corner. I'm going to smoke that out on the lower lash line and then go back with our Real Techniques brush and our transition shades from both palettes to blend that out. For my inner corner on the OG side, I'm going to take the shade Beam on my finger. And for the inner corner on volume 2, I'm going to have to go with Rider Diamonds because I'm In It has a very strong pink undertone. You can kind of tell in the pan, but especially when you swatch it. So it's going to end up looking really pink and really out of place. So I'd rather just go with Rider Diamonds. Okay guys, I will be back with lashes to give you my final thoughts between the battle of the OG Jaclyn Hill palette and the volume 2. Alright guys, the jury has come to a decision, and that is that between the battle of the Jaclyn Hill volume 2 palette, the Jaclyn Hill original palette versus the Jaclyn Hill volume 2 palette, between the two, the winner is the original palette. Nah, I'm playing. The volume 2 palette. Okay. Formula wise, I've got to say that I do prefer the volume 2. The mattes just seemed a bit more pigmented and vibrant. Now, if you are someone who does not like vibrant and likes to stay in their comfort and in their neutral zone, the original palette is definitely for you. This is in no means not a bad palette, just in my personal opinion, and for my preference, I prefer the vibrancy of the volume 2 palette. If you like your neutral comfort, you will prefer the original palette. And I also do want to mention that I was pleasantly surprised and blown away by the shimmers in the volume 2 palette. When I've initially swatched the volume 2 shimmers or metallics compared to the original or volume 1 or whatever you want to call it, the volume 1 definitely seems to have a bit more of a foiled metallic base. As for the shimmers inside of it, they definitely aren't as insane as the volume 2 is. The volume 2's shimmers have, I don't know, you could just tell like between the two eyes. The volume 2 shimmers has like these reflex shining at you. I know Jaclyn did mention that they are pressed glitters. They don't really seem like pressed glitters to me. They just seem like hardly pressed shimmers. I guess a top coat feeling where there's a lot of sparkle and glimmer more than an actual base. Whereas the original palette definitely has a bit more of a base and a bit more of just like a swipe rather than glitter shining at you, if that makes sense. And like I said, for the mattes, they both are blendable and creamy. The first one is definitely easier to build up rather than the volume 2. The volume 2 is pretty much pigmented right off the bat, so it is definitely a bit more work to blend in because you have pigment off the bat rather than building it up. But I just prefer that anyway. I'd rather it be pigmented, but obviously tap off your excess, go in slow at a time. Don't go deeping in and panning your eyeshadow in your volume 2, or else you are going to have a very, very hard time. You like to stay more in your neutrals and you don't really love pinks and purples and you usually shy away from them, then the original is your winner. But if you're like me and you like your vibrant colors, then volume 2 is your winner. So I disagree with Jaclyn Hill's claim that they do have the same formula, because I don't think they do, but I like the formula that volume 2 has for its colors, and I like the formula that the original palette has for its colors, if that makes sense. I think the formulas go perfectly with the shades that it has. If it was switched, I don't think both palettes would be nearly as close to good as it's opposed to what they are like right now, if that makes sense. Alright guys, I hope you guys enjoyed, and if you have any questions, definitely let me know in the comments down below, and I will be sure to get back to you, and I hope to see you in my next one. Bye! Love you all. Now I'm going to take this shade and then just use it as a transition shade to... You're doing a makeup? Jaclyn, I'm out! Oh my god, I'm out! Palette's I thought I'd like her lid color and the mattes on the edges of my eye. Edges? I'm gonna use this.